When you're ready to start creating blob files in your storage account, then you do have a couple of options. Not unlike tables and other types of storage methods, you can use a number of tools. And I'm just back here in my Azure Storage Explorer. And we absolutely can use this for creating new blob containers and then new blob files. And if you are more comfortable with it, you can also use something like Visual Studio. So again, you just have to connect to your Azure subscription, and we can see that we've got our storage account here, and there's the option for blobs. So either one can create them. There are a couple of different properties, however, that do need to be set, and you might find something like Storage Explorer might be a little bit easier there, but there's a number of other tools that you can use as well. But let's just have a quick look at just getting started with creating blobs. And the first thing that you do have to do, of course, again, is just select your storage account. And then from within our Storage Explorer, we just have to select blobs as our type. And then over here, we do have to create, again, that named container. There has to be some kind of named container. I can't just go ahead and create a new blob. Right there, it says that we have to select a container first. So we're going to go to the container section and say new. And we'll just call this container 1. And it actually does need to be lowercase. Okay. Now, you do have the options right at creation time for you see the accessibility for public container, a public blob, or a private one. So again, if the entire container is public, then all blobs in that container are accessible. Or we can create this just to keep a single blob available. In this case, we'll leave it set at private. So we're just going to go ahead and say create container 1. And that's really all it is. And again, note that the little padlock shows up indicating that that has been kept private. Now, you can absolutely create one in Visual Studio very similarly. I'm just going to right click on my blobs option here and say create blob container, and we'll just call this one container 2. Okay. Note that we don't have any of the options, however, for the permissions access within here. So we'll just click on OK and create our 2 named containers. Now that is refreshed, and you see that both of them are present now. So we can just double click on any one of these, and you do see, of course, some of the content here. But in this case, we don't have any content. So what you have to do with Visual Studio is to get started by using the upload button. So there's the upload right there. So this suggests that we do already have something created. If we go into our Storage Explorer, and let's just refresh here, we should see our second one. We can actually create the blobs right in here. So this is maybe a better option if you're ready to just create the file right from within your Storage Explorer here. So I'll select container 1, and I'm just going to say new. And again, the blob name can be anything that you want it to be. I'll just say blob 1. And here's the options for the type, whether it's a block blob or a page blob. And again, block blobs are typically used for maybe something that you're going to be streaming. And page blob is generally just for sort of, if you will, regular storage. And if you choose page blob, then you've got these blob sizes in kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, or terabytes. Now again, note that 1 terabyte is the maximum size for a page blob. So for the time being, just for simplicity, let's just leave ours set at block. And there's some initial text content if you want to, just for descriptions. That's entirely up to you. So we're just going to leave that as that. And it's not a bad idea as well to actually include the type within the name. So maybe you might call this block blob 1 or something like that. And that's obviously optional as well. So I can just create that, and I can just keep on creating. There's nothing really more than I have to do with respect to that. And then once that has been created, I'm going to double click on that, and you see that there are various properties of that blob. Now we'll be dealing with some of these properties in a little greater detail later on, but what I want to point out here is how that blob is accessed. So there you see is the URI for accessing that. And note that it actually has your named container in the name, and then, of course, your actual blob as the tail end part of the name. But there are some other properties and metadata that we'll be dealing with later on, but those are some of your basic properties of any given blob, most notably how it's accessed. So I'm just going to save that. So The other option that you can do, again, if you already have something created, of course, is we can just upload a file from within here. So this is just a matter of selecting a file from our file system, specifying whatever that is, and then uploading that. And then quickly, we're just going to have a look here. You can see the security option, wherein we can set, again, the access for that particular container or that particular blob, and we can set shared access signature options, and then also a shared access policy option for read, write, delete lists, start time, and expiry time. So again, we'll see some of those more advanced options later, but that's how we can just simply get started with blob storage. Have your storage account, get your Storage Explorer or Visual Studio, create your named containers first, then go ahead and start creating your blob files.